If there's anything I love more than women, it's Kamen Riders. That's right, folks. Today I'm going to be covering all 26 female Kamen Riders in order from weakest to strongest. All the rules remain the same as my previous two videos. Borrowed forms and weapons are allowed, but no outside help, which means forms like Igarashi and Nadeshiko fusion states are off the table. I will not be looking at any non-canon characters from mediums like the manga or stage shows. Also, this might be a controversial decision, but I will also be excluding any riders that are just female versions of already established male characters. That way I won't have to retread too many of the same arguments. However, I will be including Tackle and Nico, even though they aren't technically Kamen Riders, they're basically still Kamen Riders in spirit. Geats is far from over, so I won't be including Nago or any other female riders that might get introduced. And finally, this video contains spoilers. So with all that out of the way, let's begin. Akira was an easy pick for last place. Her only fight scene lasts about 5 seconds before she's knocked unconscious in one hit. To give her credit though, she isn't completely helpless. The Kodama is just an irregularly strong opponent, and she'd definitely fare better against the other bottom tiers. But even keeping this in mind, her overall lack of experience coupled with poor stamina means she doesn't possess great odds of winning any fights. Another easy bottom tier pick, Tackle specializes in two techniques. The Electro Toss, which is really only useful against mooks, and the Ultra Cyclone, which kills her. In all fairness, the Ultra Cyclone is strong enough to kill Dr. Kate, who can block Stronger's 60-ton punches, so this one move alone is potentially enough to bump her up several spots. But it's still a kamikaze attack. She's neglected using it before in the past, against foes that she would have no other way of defeating, and only made the exception to save Stronger's life. This list features everyone in character, and isn't necessarily a fight to the death, so it's very unlikely that she would decide to use this move at all in most scenarios, when she could just take the L instead. Lark's crossbow gives her a ranged advantage against the other riders, but besides that, she really doesn't have much else going for her. The Blade Riders are already not very strong by Kamen Rider standards, and the Ace Riders are even weaker. In fact, Lark seems to struggle the most out of all three of them, which makes sense. The only thing we know about her is that she used to be an office employee, so she most likely has no combat training prior to becoming a rider. Logically speaking, Anna shouldn't be that much weaker than Ryotaro as a child, which would unfortunately make her half as strong as the original. Momotaro's could potentially win by possessing his opponent, which he can do to superhumanly powerful characters such as Wataru and Tsukasa, but he's never really tried this type of strategy in the past, and even a total pushover like Ryotaro can eventually force him out with enough willpower. Also, this might be kind of obvious, but Anna is the least intelligent character on here. Momotaro's does seem to have several years worth of fighting experience. It's hard to say exactly how many since he time travels everywhere. But despite this, he's still pretty stupid. His judgment mostly ranges from unreliable to hilariously incompetent.
Okay.
Mua is one of the only characters on this list that can actually be hurt by normal bullets. something that even fodder monsters from other seasons are immune to. It's no surprise given that Abaddons are super weak foot soldiers, but Mua's clearly far more dominant than the rest. She's able to dodge bullets from Valkyrie, not to mention her physical stats are way higher than they have any right to be. But she's still an Abaddon. Even assuming Mua's 10 times stronger or more skilled than the others, Fua can easily take out 10 of these guys on his own without even needing to transform. And normal AIMS troopers are able to hold their own against them no problem. But despite her weakness, it turns out Mua is also kind of immortal. Since her avatar isn't her real body, that means she can potentially respawn as many times as she wants. And since a lot of the characters on this list don't have the tools they would need to find her on their own, that could boost her all the way up to the number 1 spot instantly, assuming she was able to tire them out enough. But even if she does revive, that would mean that she died in the first place, which by the rules I've already established counts as a loss. Jam debatedly doesn't belong on this list at all since it's just Kogane possessing some random girl he found, but I figured, why not include him? Despite his high stats, Jam kinda sucks. While the original Mars could contend with Kiwami arms, Jam almost lost to base form Ryugen, with his only other victory being against a single Kurokage trooper. It's possible Jam could win by the same means that he bested Ryugen, holding the girl he possessed hostage. But it turns out a lot of the women on this list are either flat out evil or morally dubious, so they probably wouldn't care that much about harming a civilian, even if they could understand she was being possessed in the first place. And those who would are too strong to lose to Jam anyway. Based on Baron's use of Ringo arms, Idunn has proven to be stronger than your average armored rider, though she's not quite as strong as an energy rider. Assuming Idunn could trap her opponents inside Helheim, that would be an instant win condition, but she's never really shown using her portals in this fashion, preferring to use it as a mix-up or as a way to escape combat instead. Plus, it would just be a temporary victory since her opponent could still hypothetically escape through one of Yggdrasil's bases. Also, the longer a battle is drawn out, the more likely Idunn is to lose thanks to her Lockseed's painful, crippling side effects. It's pretty clear that Sylphi doesn't scale to Kajidoki arms, but she should at least be as strong as King Durian. Overall, King Durian is pretty similar to Ringo arms. Both have fought Takatora while he was armed with weapons that he described as being difficult to use. However, while Idunn ultimately lost to Watermelon arms, it's plausible to believe King Durian could have actually beaten Takatora Greedon if their fight had gone on uninterrupted. And Sylphi is most likely stronger than King Durian, since this form is implied to be her creation, and a stray hit from one of her vines was enough to stagger him for several seconds. Completing the quadrinity of Kamen Riders is Marika. Prior to becoming Ryoma's bodyguard, Yoko was a special ops agent for an unknown organization. She can match Oren Pierre in hand-to-hand combat. A man who spent 5 years in the French military can beat up 4 other dudes on his own and apparently won the World Cup? While Energy Riders have matched Demushu, this doesn't automatically make her city level, since he's proven to become increasingly more powerful over time. But she should still be able to match him in his weakest form, which when compared to Baron has stats 7 times stronger on average. Also, Marika doesn't lose to Idunn. She only landed 1 hit before fleeing, and it was a sneak attack. did say OG Akira was an easy pick for bottoms here, AR Akira is a completely different case. She's Ibuki's best student, putting her on the same level as Todoroki. And while she doesn't have any official stats, she's a completely competent Oni unlike her original self. So her attack power probably isn't that much lower than someone like Todoroki's.
これは伊吹のアキラ。誤解っす。自分は片思いなだけっす。おい。禁断の愛っす。
Shuki is the most skilled combatant on here when it comes to years of experience. Thanks to her super healing, she's way older than she looks. Akira might be Todoroki's equal, but even in that universe, Zanki is still his mentor, and Shuki was once Zanki's mentor. At melee range, her katana skills are enough to contend with Hibiki. Her own Gekibo Kitara can create veils of sound that block incoming projectiles. And it can fire an arrow so powerful, at point blank, it can one-shot even the superhumanly durable Oni. Like herself. Assuming Yua joined AIMS immediately after turning 21, that would give her nearly 4 years of active experience prior to the start of the season. And her technical expertise, along with how quickly she managed to climb her ranks, are surely evidence of her high intelligence. Lightning Hornet is twice as strong as her base form. Justice Serval and Fighting Jackal are likely even stronger, but it's not really possible to say by how much exactly. The Serval Tiger Magia gets demolished by Horobi even in a 2v1, and the same can be said for Jackal's fights against Rampage Vulcan. So overall, Valkyrie really shouldn't be that much stronger than the other riders at this point, but she could potentially be much faster thanks to her being able to react to objects launched by Satellite Zeya at 280 times the speed of sound. Quite fitting for someone with the powers of a cheetah.
逆だったらどうする？私を撃てるのか？
もちろんぶっ潰す。
Mage has some of the absolute worst stats on this list, which might give you the impression she's complete fodder, but in reality she is far more powerful than you might think. Remember how I brought up how Abaddon is hurt by normal bullets? Well, the weakest monster from Wizard, ghouls, are almost entirely immune to them. And Mage can wipe out a whole crowd of these things no problem. Mage also has the Wizard Sword Gun, which fires homing bullets, so good luck dodging one of those. And she's one of the only characters on this list that could track down Mua's actual location using her White Garda. The exact amount of time Mayu has spent learning magic is a bit unclear. It's probably not even a month, but don't underestimate her just because of this. Fellow Mage Rider Masahiro had his powers for less than a day, and he was still able to beat Wizard's Dragon Style. Wizard has successfully fought the same foes as Forze while only in his base form, meaning he can dish out attacks in excess of 2.5 kilotons. Even if we assume Valkyrie was as strong as Thouser, which she likely isn't, Mage would still be stronger, and if you think Valkyrie could just speed blitz her, scaling to Forze would also mean she scales to O's and Double, who are fast enough to dodge lightning attacks, which also travel at Mach 280. Not to mention, Wizard has some attacks that are just straight up actual lightning. Given the way Nadeshiko is portrayed and her general lack of solid feats, she might not appear very impressive to the casual viewer, but looking at her character in context paints an entirely different picture. She's considered an invaluable resource to Lem Kanagi, who even in his human form can already one-shot base form Forze. Rocket states a form utilizing only a fraction of Nadeshiko's power is strong enough to beat Skyrider, and the same switch was also able to propel the 3,700-ton Go Buster O to 260 times the speed of light. I'm not going to be attributing this feat solely to Nadeshiko, since the Go Busters and Forze were probably responsible for a lot of this energy, but if I did, that would instantly bump her up all the way to number 7. The Dark Necroms definitely seem like they would be complete afterthoughts, but that really isn't the case for either one. Both are stronger than base form Ghost, who's fought on equal footing as Ichigo, a character who can survive 500 gigaton nukes and dodge literal beams of light. And they're almost as strong as the original Necrom, who beat Tokon Boost Ghost and Specter in a 2v1. Alia is the weaker of the two, but probably not by much. Sure, she lost her only fight, but that was against the Ganmeisers, the final bosses of the series. It definitely feels weird putting two characters of such relative insignificance so high on the list, but numbers don't lie, and either one of these ladies could tear through the competition like tissue paper.
いいゴール下がりなさい。
いいえ、たとえアリア様といえど。
下がりなさい。
なぜ私ばかり。
Femme isn't shown to be as powerful as the other top tiers for Ryuki, but the fact that she managed to outlast half the competition means she couldn't be too far behind in terms of power as well as skill. She's strong enough to pierce Zolda's hand through his armor and delivered the killing blow to Oja, though she did have help from a stronger character. Considering how level 2 Brave stood almost no chance against Oja and level 2 Xaid was able to swiftly defeat Blue Necrom, I'd say Femme has a pretty good chance of beating the Necrom girls. In a similar case to what I said about Idunn, Femme dragging another character into the mirror world would end up killing them, but she's never met another Kamen Rider who can't survive in the mirror world, so she has no reason to assume otherwise.
みんな俺の妹だ。
お兄ちゃんお兄ちゃんお兄ちゃん
カノンがいっぱいだ。
While arguably not as strong as Sin Specter, Kanon was pretty evenly matched with the Ganma Ultima Ebony, and likely could have beaten him without her brother's help. The standard, weaker version of this monster has beaten Necrom repeatedly, and pushed Deep Specter to his physical limits, which should put her within the range of Grateful's 15 times multiplier. Level 3 was able to stalemate the same opponent as Deep Specter, and since Oja's stronger than a level 2 but weaker than a level 4, this should make Kanon and Femme fairly evenly matched. This one could go either way, but ultimately I have to give the point to Kanon since I don't think Femme could have actually beaten Oja on her own. And while level 3 was able to stalemate the Gorilla Bugster in a 2v1, it's not unrealistic to suspect Deep Specter could have been carrying more than his share of the weight during that fight.
お兄ちゃんイケメンだねでしょライドプレイヤーニコ
This one is especially weird to me given that ride players are basically generic troopers, but turns out Nico scales above the majority of the characters on this list. Nico was able to beat a level 5 Revol Bugster, already making her stronger than Ghost and Ryuki riders. The Gang Riser program installed within her suit raises her physical stats as she gains experience points, unlike the Kamen Riders who have static levels. While I'm unsure what her level is exactly, she's potentially killed multiple monsters off screen and is credited with delivering the killing blow to the level 99 Graphite. So it's likely she's much stronger than just a level 5.
何なんだこの姿は。
There's a big meme amongst Kamen Rider fans about Poppy being stronger than Gaim Kiwami and Abel Cobra, which is really only true in terms of their official stats, but regardless, Poppy actually did end up being one of the strongest female Kamen Riders. She's at least twice as strong as Nico, and I say at least because thanks to her being level X, Poppy is basically given a random number as her level, meaning at any given moment she could be as strong as a level 99 or as weak as a level 1. Other than her sheer power though, Poppy really doesn't have many other notable abilities. As a digital being, it's possible she could enter an electronic device and destroy it from within. But this really would only apply to Valkyrie and Mua, who Poppy would already beat. Bugsters are able to teleport, but they usually only do so as a last resort while escaping battle. And while she could potentially come back from the dead infinitely, it isn't something that she can do instantly or without outside help. Though Sabera doesn't stand out much amongst the other characters from Saber, when compared to the other female riders, she's practically god tier. Being able to defeat the Lords of Wise makes her comparable to Cross Saber, the same form which can stop Storius from colliding two universes together. And she's able to keep up with Psycho, who moves at the speed of light. But independent of speed and power, her smoke form makes her an absolute pain in the ass to deal with. She can shift in and out of tangibility at will. There's seemingly no limit to how many times this can be done, and she can even choose which parts of her body remain tangible, letting her attack and defend simultaneously. Not to mention, she can turn other people and objects into smoke as well. While this could potentially work as an insta-kill option, assuming the effect doesn't automatically wear off, it isn't something she's known to use against enemies stronger than herself, so it doesn't really change her placement.
Aguilera.
私はかつて悪の女王として罪を重ねてきた。だから全力で償うわ。
Jeanne and Aguilera basically parallel one another, so it makes sense to cover both at once. I'm not going to be counting Aguilera and Dark Aguilera as two separate characters. They're presumably of equal strength anyway. It would make as much sense to me as giving Loveco her own spot. The comparison between Aguilera and Sabera is actually extremely simple. Sabera has fought against Aguilera's group of Deadmans before, in which the Deadmans had an easy victory against the Riders. While I don't think Aguilera in her human form really made any impact in this fight, her Deadman's form is outright stronger than Daioika, and her Rider form is even stronger than this. Jeanne, with help from Kenzan, managed to defeat the Himiko Crisper, who Sabera and Durandal previously failed to defeat. As for who is the stronger of the two Revice girls, well, both have beaten opponents that the other couldn't, so it should be about a 50-50. Until you factor in Invincible Jeanne, in which case the answer should be obvious. That being said, interestingly enough, Jeanne actually does have one weakness that Aguilera lacks. Unlike Aguilera, Jeanne's suit doesn't filter air and is seemingly designed to do the exact opposite. This makes her particularly susceptible to putrid smells and poisonous gases, which could cause her some serious pain if she happened to inhale some of Sabera's nauseous pheromone-laced smoke. I definitely think it's still possible for Sabera to win with her combat hacks combined with skill, but in order for her to actually beat the two, she would need to be performing at her absolute best to make up for the strength gap, whereas Jeanne and Aguilera are strong enough to beat her just by performing at an average level. Since the original tackle was easy bottom tier bait, it's quite poetic to see her successor reach the 3rd place spot. I had a little bit of trouble deciding how Black Tackle should be tiered compared to Aguilera and Jeanne. It might be a little weird to see her place higher than the Revice girls since she ultimately lost to the two of them, but the key words in this instance are the two of them. When analyzing these characters, I have to consider how each fight would occur in a vacuum. It's very clear Aguilera needed help from Jeanne in order to win this fight, and if Jeanne were not present, these events might have played out much differently. While I did say the original Tackle's two main abilities weren't very useful, Black Tackle is once again the exact opposite. Unlike the original, Black Tackle's telekinesis completely dictates the flow of battle. There's no way to actually defend against it, besides just hoping she doesn't use it. Even though we didn't get to see it, it's safe to assume the Ultra Cyclone would have been enough to kill Aguilera. But could it kill Invincible Jeanne? Since this form is a fusion between her and Love Cove, and has stats twice as high as her base, it could be around twice as durable. Well, Black Tackle presumably was made with some of the best technology Black Satan has available. Their leader, Miss Titan, is so powerful that Jeanne and Sabera in a 2v1 stood almost no chance of beating her. And it took all 6 riders working together in order to take her down. Though Black Tackle's durability wouldn't grow to match her mother's, using this technique, her energy output certainly should. And unlike the original, who only sacrificed herself to save Stronger, Black Tackle is completely brainwashed by Black Satan and would eagerly sacrifice herself if deemed necessary. While she might hesitate to use this move against Hana, given her sentimental feelings towards her, Yuriko has no such feelings towards Sakura. It wouldn't necessarily be an easy victory, but in my opinion, Black Tackle does have the tools she needs to beat the girls from Revice. Deserving the penultimate spot on this list, Natsumi is the heiress to the Hikari family's secret technique. By tapping an opponent's pressure point, Natsumi can send her victim into an uncontrollable fit of laughter, appropriately inhibiting their motor functions as a result. In all seriousness, however, Kivala does possess one seriously impressive feat. While it's clear that Decade let his guard down and wanted to die, you have to keep in mind this is the same guy who just got done killing every other Kamen Rider, including Ultimate Kuga. But I still doubt Kivala is as strong as peak Decade. So is she really that much stronger than the other multiverse busters? Sure, Storius could only destroy 2 universes, but the Revice Riders should be stronger than this. Is that not enough to close the gap? Well, it turns out Decade is just on a completely different level. In Zeo, Swartz was able to merge 20 different universes at once, with only half of Decade's power. Not to mention seasons like Build confirm that alternate branching timelines do indeed exist. It's no wonder official episode descriptions have stated Decade can destroy an infinite number of universes. Just the fact that Kivala managed to not only take hits from him, but also pierce his armor and flesh and kill him, is a serious testament to her power, and she'd easily be at the very top of the list, if not for our one final combatant. Appropriately enough, the female rider from Zeo ends up topping the list. As a member of the royal family, Alpina's natural time-warping abilities far exceed that of the other Timejackers. While I can't really say if Tsukuyomi could just keep time frozen indefinitely, assuming this ability does have limited stamina, this limitation likely isn't even worth considering, since a weaker Timejacker was able to spam his time rewinding ability up to 1,000 times in a row. That being said, Tsukuyomi is actually weaker than Kivala, at least in a traditional sense. The comparison is pretty simple. Kivala impaled Decade while he was at full strength and managed to kill him. Meanwhile, Tsukuyomi impaled a Decade who was only half as strong and failed to kill him. However, even with her blatant strength advantage, Kivala has absolutely no way of defending herself against Tsukuyomi's time stop, and the overall gap in power isn't quite wide enough to keep her from just absolutely getting decked in frozen time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun analyzing some of the more obscure and underappreciated riders that wouldn't really get a chance in the spotlight otherwise. Next up is tertiary riders, so stay tuned.